Hey, it's me. It is Mike Lepre, Legit Fantasy Sports. It was Legit Fantasy Football. Now we're going all out. We're all in. It's Legit Fantasy Sports. I'm down here at Arnold's. Just had a burger and a shake. Now I'm having a coffee from the D&D that's across the street. Today we're going to do the 15 worst quarterbacks in NFL history. Now, these were tabulated based on where they were drafted and basically what the guys from Legit Fantasy Sports thought. Yeah, so here we go. Top 15 worst quarterbacks. Number 15, David Carr. David Carr became the Houston Texans franchise quarterback in 2002. He was the first selection and from Fresno State. What I believe happened to David Carr is he ended up on an expansion team and got sacked more times than a hooker. Dropped off in the middle of a field of old Italian guys with velour suits and too much money. That took a long time, but you know what I mean. He was sacked 267 times and averaged being sacked 3.4 times a game. However, David Carr did win a Super Bowl ring as the backup quarterback to Eli Manning. So, number 14 worst quarterback of all time, Carl Sweeten. Back when there was tons of rounds in the NFL draft, Carl Sweeten was taken the 18th out of Wake Forest by the Detroit Lions. The Lions thought that he would have a long career, but he really didn't have a bad one. He was, I think his career accomplishment was throwing like a 99-yard touchdown, and finished his career, I know, 6-10 and 3 ties. He had like 17 touchdowns, 34 interceptions. He only completed on 45.6% of his passes. Again, drafted 18th out of Wake Forest, total waste, complete total waste, Carl Sweeten. Number 13, David Brown. I know this one personally because he was a Giant. I know that we got him in the 1992 supplemental draft. He's another quarterback from Duke, which is scary as all hell. And he followed Sims, whereas Daniel's following Eli. Brown had one good rookie season, right? And then he went 9-6, and it went downhill. He ended up being a backup with the Cardinals. His career record was 26-34 with 44 touchdowns and 58 interceptions. For drafting him as high as we did in the supplemental draft, Dave Brown stunk. The number 12 worst quarterback of all time, as reported by the guys at Legit Fantasy Sports down here at Arnold's. Todd Marinovich. I think a lot of people know the story of Todd Marinovich, one of those guys that, one of those kids that's dad wanted him to be a pro football quarterback and literally did everything in his power to make him a pro football quarterback, like the way he was strict going into high school and going into college. He went to USC. He was unbelievable. You know, the Raiders, drafted by the Raiders. He eventually just like bounced out. He had a horrible completion percentage, like 50, at least 50%, around 50%. He only had 8 touchdowns in his career. He just took a lot of drugs. Like basically, cocaine's a hell of a drug. Like, Todd Marinovich was pushed to play sports. And what happened when he pushed to play sports? And he got some time away from his dad. Well, he took a bunch of drugs because he didn't really want to play sports. He was only doing that to appease his dad. Number 11 on the worst quarterbacks of all time, Bob Avellini. Coming out of Maryland in the 6th round in 1975. The whole draft, Bob Avellini played for a decade with the Chicago Bulls and then 1 year with the Jets, but only started 50 games. Avellini had plenty of chances to take the reins and be the starter, but he just wasn't ready to be a franchise quarterback and was incredibly mediocre his first 2 seasons. Good for 1 season and then derails. At least his career record isn't as awful at 23 and 27, but he also threw 33 touchdowns to a whopping 69 interceptions. Number 10, worst quarterback of all time, Jack Trudeau. Jack Trudeau wasn't expected to be a franchise savior, but was given a chance by the holes in the mid-'80s. There were a lot of holes in the mid-'80s. So to do so, Trudeau was drafted in the second round in 1986 by the Colts, both the Indianapolis Colts, and got plenty of time almost right away as a rookie. Throws for 8 touchdowns. He had 18 interceptions. Things got a little better. He ended up with a 500 record, but his career stat line ended up being something along the lines of 19 and 30 with 42 touchdowns and 69 interceptions. So Jack Trudeau was just one of those guys that was junk, but he managed to stay in the league for like 10 years, which there's a lot of guys and a lot of coaches that somehow manage to stay in the NFL. You just can't believe that they're still there. Number 9, worst quarterback all time, Joey Harrington. Well, you younger fans may remember Harrington. He was drafted by the Lions, surefire prospect, right? Coming out of Oregon in 2002. The Lions selected him 3rd overall. Harrington, was a great guy. He just couldn't be an NFL starting quarterback. He ended with an 18 and 37 record in Detroit before moving to Atlanta and Miami for 1 year each. Eventually finishing at 26 and 50 with 79 touchdowns and 85 interceptions. Joey Harrington was supposed to be a surefire thing. And to be as bad as he was, or mediocrely bad as he was, it was a gigantic blow to that organization. Number 8, Mike Phipps. The farthest back you have to go in time on this list to find a quarterback is Mike Phipps. He was drafted 3rd over. Mike Phipps probably hung around at Arnold's. Mike Phipps was drafted 3rd out of Purdue by the Browns in 1970. Phipps spent 7 years in Cleveland as well as 5 in Chicago. He had 2 good years where his teams went 10 and 3 or 10 and 9, 10-3 and 9, I think. What? No, 10 and 3 and 9 and 1 is what I'm trying to say. Phipps was not an efficient passer at all, completing less than 50% on his throws. He had, by the time he was done, he tossed 55 touchdowns to 108 interceptions. They called him a serviceable quarterback. When you're drafted that high and you become a serviceable quarterback. Number 7, Dave Klingler. Some of you guys know him as a coach. The Cincinnati Bengals were in need of a new. The Cincinnati Bengals are they? Is it always the Cincinnati Bengals? The Cincinnati Bengals were in need of a new franchise quarterback because Boomer Esiason had retired. So they selected Dave Klingler with the 6th overall pick. In 1992, the record-setting college quarterback was highly touted, but he flopped right away, failing his way with a 3-17 record in his 2 years as a starter. Klingler was then demoted to the bench and spent 2 years in Oakland as a backup before calling it quits. By the time Klingler was done, his career was a depressing 4-20 with 16 touchdowns and 22 interceptions, and will always be known as a huge bust. Paul Klingler, but he stunk. Number 6 on the worst quarterbacks of all time, Rick Mira. Rick Mira is supposed to be the new golden boy out of Notre Dame, local hero, after growing up just a few miles from South Bend. Putting himself in college, Mira was taken 2nd overall in 93 by the Seahawks. Got off to a shaky start, but still beat out Drew Bledsoe for the Rookie of the Year. Expectations were high for Mira, but he failed to live up to the hype. He only regressed further. He bounced around the NFL playing for the Jets, 49ers, Raiders. In his career, he went 24 and 44 with only 50 touchdowns and 76 interceptions, averaging less than 150 yards a game. I watched an ESPN show once on that, and what happened was they found that Rick Mira could only throw to one side of the field. So they took away the other side of the field, and Rick Meyer couldn't complete a pass. That's go look it up. Number 5 of like the worst quarterback bust type people in the world. Number 5 is Heath Shuler. The Redskins. There's another team. It's just Jets, Redskins, Bengals. They just kind of rotate. The Redskins story doesn't change. It hasn't changed much since '91. They need a franchise quarterback. They're looking for one. But they thought they had one in Heath Shuler. He won the 1993 Heisman Trophy. Well, he was the runner-up and was selected 3rd overall by the Redskins in '94. Shuler had a rough start out of the gate, finishing 1-7, but he got a chance again the next year and played 5 games, going 3-2 with 3 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Eventually, Heath Shuler was benched in favor of Gus Frerotte. When you get benched in favor of Gus Frerotte, what you should do is this: you should walk back to the bench, grab all your belongings, walk back to the locker room, leave all the football stuff, take all your regular clothes, go home, fly back if you have to, catch a flight, ring your doorbell, make sure people are home, knock on the door, go in your house, go in your living room, and just sit the fuck down. You're done. You're done if Gus Frerotte comes in for you. He ended up in New Orleans, Heath Shuler, and just was a complete, absolute bust. Number 4, worst quarterbacks of all time, was Chris Weinke. Chris Weinke was drafted by Carolina. They were mediocre in 2000. And they were still searching for a long-term solution at quarterback. So, whatever reason, they took Chris Weinke in the 4th round of 2021, despite the fact that he's only a couple of months away from being 29. He was 29 when he won the Heisman at Florida, and was given the chance to start 15 games his rookie season with the Carolina Panthers and lost 14 of them. All Weinke finished with a record of 2-18, including 1 loss with San Francisco, and was out of the league in 2007 with 15 touchdowns and 26 interceptions. Chris Weinke was like 29 coming out of college. That's kind of like how old I would have been if I just kept finishing things. I probably would have been older. Number 3, worst quarterback of all time. Going back to the Bengals. Shocker. Achilles Smith. Achilles Smith came after Dave Klingler and Jeff Blake. The Bengals were still searching for the next Boomer Esiason, and this is where Achilles Smith comes in. He's drafted 3rd overall in 1999 out of Oregon. Only played in 4 games his rookie season. Smith played just 4 years in the league with the Bengals and had 1 season when he started 11 games. But other than that, the other 3 seasons he combined for 6 starts. Smith went 3-14 in those games with 5 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, making him a huge bust. Smith's accuracy was terrible, and his athleticism could not make up for it. How do you make your number 3 pick? Was it 3 or 4? Doesn't matter. How do you make your first round pick a quarterback whose biggest knock is he doesn't have accuracy? Well, I mean, you know what it is? It's the Bengals. So if this is like any team other than Bengals or Jets, I'm going to go with, or the Redskins. I'm like, what the hell is that? But I guess you draft quarterback because you like his athleticism, but you're a little upset that he's just not quite accurate. All right, number 2, worst quarterback of all time, Ryan Leaf. This is the elite tier of bad quarterbacks. Ryan Leaf. He was a finalist in the 1997 Heisman Trophy, but he was like the only one of those guys who didn't have a good career in the NFL. It was him and Peyton Manning in the 1998 draft, and Leaf ended up going to San Diego. He actually seemed like a better, more upside. He seemed more upside because I guess Peyton was seen as having coming off surgery and like that's as good as Peyton's going to get. Like he's great, but that's as good as he's going to get. That's his ceiling, which that's like imagine saying that's Peyton Manning's ceiling his rookie year. The guy that's brain looked like it physically grew in his head, making his head elongate. But that's the guy that he's reached his ceiling. But Ryan Leaf, no, sky's the limit. And sky was the limit because pretty much he played 2 seasons in San Diego. He got let go, I think, in 2001. He finishes with a record of 4-17 with 14 touchdowns and 36 interceptions. He got drunk right after he got drafted. He flew to like Vegas with a bunch of friends and got wasted. I think he obviously didn't practice hard, read the playbook, anything like that. Ryan Leaf was an absolute positive bust. They would have never let him in Arnold's. But he wasn't the worst quarterback of all time. So to recap the 15 worst quarterbacks of all time as told to you by legitfantasysports.com, I'm going to go from 15 back down to 2, and then we'll do number 1. Number 15, David Carr. Number 14, Carl Sweet. Number 13, Dave Brown. Number 12, Todd Marinovich. Number 11, Bob Avellini. Number 10, Jack Trudeau. Number 9, Joey Harrington. Number 8, Mike Phipps. Number 7, Dave Klingler. Number 6, Rick Myra. Number 5, Heath Schuler. Number 4, Chris Wenke. Number 3, Achilles Smith. Number 2, Ryan Leaf. And of course, the number 1 worst quarterback of all time, Jamarcus Russell. The number 1 quarterback drafted by the Raiders in 2007 out of LSU. Scouts said he was a sure thing because of his size and athleticism. Little did they know that the athleticism really would not increase and things would go really bad. He started 1 game in his rookie season, but 15 in his second year. After his 3rd season in the league, Russell was gone, leaving with a 7-18 record and setting the Raiders back for years. He literally set that franchise back for years. He threw 18 touchdowns against 23 interceptions and never even put up an impressive rushing stat. On top of that, the story goes, one of his coaches gave him a videotape and had nothing on it, but he didn't tell Jamarcus that. And he said, "Here's the tape of all the coverages that they run. Go home, study it. Tell me which plays you think will work against these coverages." Jamarcus says, "Okay," takes the tape home, comes back the next day. Coach says, "Jamarcus, you watched the tape?" Jamarcus said, "Yep." He goes, "Well, what do you think?" Jamarcus goes, We'll be fine, Coach. We can run all the offenses. We won't have a problem." The coach is like, "Oh, okay." Man, when you get drafted as your first, come on, man. You made it to the NFL. At least, stick it through. Stick it through. That was the 15 worst quarterbacks of all time. It's me, Mike Lepre, here at Arnold's for Legit Fantasy Sports. Be on the lookout for a couple of more top 10, top 15, top 18. We just like different numbers. You know what I mean? 10's kind of boring. But look out for a couple more and make me popping out today. Quick news for the New York Football Giants, my favorite team. We fired offensive lineman Mark Colombo today. Odd. I thought Mark Colombo was trying to do a good job. Why do you think Joe Judge would fire him? Can't wait to find out. This was me, Mike Lepre, Legit Fantasy Sports. I hope you enjoyed.